there's a lot of things we cannot control in life. Most things we cannot control. Business is not going good and you've got your health, you'll be all right. You'll bounce back. You'll find a way to get back into it. You got your health, you're fine. I mean, it doesn't matter what happens. You got your health, you're okay. Business is not going well and you don't have your health. Good luck. You're in a pickle, a real pickle. Business isn't going well. Health isn't going well because you haven't prioritized it. Now you're really in a jam. I don't want to be in a jam. I put my health first. And, it makes me a better human being, man. It just makes me a better human.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of ALLSMITH, where we break down mindset, movement, and mastery with simply the best in the game. Today, I'm beyond stoked to welcome back a man who embodies the relentless pursuit of excellence, not just in business, but in life, family, and love. Michael Chernow is a husband, a father, an entrepreneur, a restaurateur, and a force in the world of fitness and wellness. He's built legendary brands, reshaped the hospitality industry, and continues to lead by example in personal growth, business, and self-discipline. But beneath all the success, there's a deeper story, a journey of transformation through sobriety and recovery. Michael, welcome to the show, man.
Dude, so stoked to be here. What an introduction. I love it. Thank you. None of it's true. No, I'm joking. It's actually, what's interesting? I will start off by saying this. For so long, I was incapable of appreciating a compliment. Mm-hmm. Somebody would say something nice to me, and I would go, "Come on, man, that's not, come on." Mm-hmm. Now, somebody says something nice to me about myself. My like instinct is to be like, "Oh, come on," but then I catch myself and I say, "No, man. Like, it's okay. You actually, you've earned that compliment. Say thank you. Don't try to deflect and brush it off. Actually say thank you. So thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. I really do.
And I appreciate you kind of starting off our conversation there, because high-performing men in general are used to being providers and protectors. They're used to creating value and being useful, which means there's a constant giving. There's a constant service. There's constantly being loved for your function. But it is a unique and elevated maturity to learn how to receive. And I think not everybody has that. Some people are takers. I don't want to, make this a huge blanket statement, but the majority of people that I have on this podcast, especially the high-performing men, struggle with receiving. And I'm curious, just your thoughts around, you have to have some sort of reciprocity, whether it's business, whether it's intimacy, whether it's friendship. It's really interesting to me just that you naturally, innately went to that, because I struggle with receiving as well. I'm like, thanks. And then in my mind, I'm like, I'm not good enough. I need to get better. I need to keep providing and producing. But I'm curious your thoughts around that word receiving.
Sounds like similar to lots of men also have spent years struggling with that, right? Like, I think, my sort of, the way I was brought up was not that of love. I was not brought up in like a super loving environment. So I think, it's very strange how the psyche works, but when you spend enough time in a bucket of poo becomes comfortable. And, and I think I spent a lot of time in a pretty dark place as a kid. And so in strange ways, I know it well. And in some weird way, it provides some level of comfort for me to just be like in the mud, I don't actually spend a lot of time these days thinking about the past. I don't shut the door on it. I know for sure that my past and some trauma that I experienced as a kid certainly has impacted some of the thought processes in my life. But receiving, I think, is just hard in general. I think a lot of people struggle with, like, really unless you're an absolute narcissist. Like, I think it's hard to just, when somebody says something really nice about you, be like, you're right. But I do think that I've just gotten intentionally better at it, because, like you, when somebody says something nice about me, in my head, I don't believe it. And it's not like I sit back and say, oh, I don't believe this person. It's just, I've always sort of been, I went from working in restaurants for a long time. I worked in restaurants as a restaurant technician, as a busboy, as a waiter, as a bartender, as a cook, as a, like all the different positions in a restaurant. And I came up with an idea to open up my own restaurant when I was 28. Now, you got to remember, I worked in restaurants as a technician from 12 to 28. So that's a good, whatever that is, 16 years that I was working for others. And I always had side hustles, and I was always doing things on the side, some savory, some not so savory. But I worked for other people in the world of restaurants for a long time. And when it was time for me to open up my own restaurant, I just did not understand what it meant to be, the difference between being an owner and a technician. And I would recommend anybody who's sort of going through this, you've worked in an industry for a long time, and you've mustered up the courage to say, all right, man, now it's my time. I'm going to go take a leap. I encourage that for sure. But I do think that there is a learning curve going from being a technician to an owner. And I recommend this book, The E-Myth Revisited, by this guy, Michael Gerber, which is one of the most fascinating books I've read on entrepreneurship. But just in general, it was a book that was recommended to me before I went into business. And so it took me a long time to distinguish the difference between being a technician and an owner. I opened up this restaurant with my childhood best friend, and it just went gangbusters, man. I'm talking about, like, we never could have imagined. I mean, it was like out of a movie, I mean, we were within 6 months. I mean, we were cooking meatballs on the Today Show and Good Morning America and Jimmy Fallon and Jay Leno. I mean, it was nutso, totally insane. And I just couldn't believe it. I didn't believe it. Because I still thought that I was, like, behind the bar. I still thought that I was I'm like, in my mind, I was like, I don't even know what's happening here. Like, there were moments where I would just be like, I don't deserve this kind of success. I mean, we had projected to do $1 million that first year in business, and we did 4 million. Whoa. And it's just like, all these things were coming at us, and people wanted to throw us money. And some of the greatest restaurateurs in my time were, like, courting us around. And I'm like, I'm this 29-year-old guy. Like, I'm a fucking bartender, man. Like, that was the mentality. I'm a bartender. This is all happening fast. But, God wrote a plan.
Secret sauce at that time. Like, what do you think people saw aside from just the passion and you didn't come from love. So if you don't come from love, you typically give love because you're seeking to receive it. Was there like a secret ingredient that that integrated within this early meatball business that maybe created this level of attraction that maybe now but weren't aware of then?
I know for sure that my life sort of, I was put on this planet to connect with human beings at scale. If there's anything that wakes me up in the morning, it is humans. I love people. I just love people. I could talk, honestly, Bryce, if you told me, hey man, we're going to do a marathon, we're going to jam for 16 hours straight, I'd be like, all right, let's go. I'm sure I'm sure I'm good. I'm good with that. Like that is, what I was put on this planet to do, is to connect with human beings. And, I'm a discovery junkie. I'm a curious mother effer. And I just love learning from other people. I just love like lifting up rocks and seeing what's underneath. That's why my favorite pastime with my sons is literally to go into the woods, and we call it critter hunting, but like we'll go into the woods for 5 hours and we'll just lift up every single rock on the property and look for salamanders and snakes and whatever. Cause I'm just like, man, I'm curious what's under there. But I do believe that. So I didn't really know that then, right? I really didn't know that then. But like what I found to be my sort of superpower is you could take me and stick me in the White House or like in Afghanistan, and I'm going to make friends. I'm just going to make friends. I'm going to walk out with new emails, new phone numbers, and a couple of new friends, and that's just who I am. So that lends itself really well to the world of restaurants. I believe that the business of business is relationships, and if you're like, for me, relationships are, and I don't intentionally go out there saying today I'm going to go make a bunch of new relationships. It's just inherently what I have. It's what I have. Just like Michael Jordan had, basketball in his blood, just like, Malcolm Gladwell has writing in his blood. I just have relationships in my blood, and relationships have been the gateway to anything successful I've done in my life. And I naturally enjoy developing them. So, now
Totally
that I know.
agree with that. Like now, after knowing you for a little time and thinking about how we first met and observing you and being like, man, this dude's special. He's a one percenter. He's uncommon amongst the uncommon. What's the why? What's the common thread? What's the peek behind the curtain? And I think you alluded to it on one of your Instagram posts, and it's around this concept of like, I love my wife and kids. I view myself as a father and a husband first, but I am number one. And the world wants to give you shit or push back against that, but it's because you can't, pour from an empty cup. And we've seen that. We've seen that movie time and time again, where it's like the man self-sabotaging and self-sacrificing, which there's times and there's seasons for that, in order to produce for his family. But then there's the other side of that where it's like, no, I'm just going to wake up a little earlier. I'm going to be a creature of habit, which we've discussed before. I'm going to do my breath work. I'm going to do my stretching. I'm going to do my prayer, my meditation. Then I'm going to integrate a sauna, cold plunge, and a workout so that I have space to then love and serve my family and my kids. And also just that time personally to kind of recharge, open your heart center, open your mind a little bit. So you're able to give and receive and kind of play ping pong with the stresses that get presented on your plate in that day. I think sometimes that gets kind of pushed to the back burner. Most high performers are like, hey, I'll do those things after I spend time with my wife and my kids and get the kids to school and do all these business emails. But then by the time you get to that, there's no juice left in the battery. And so what are your thoughts on some of these concepts that I'm alluding to that could maybe motivate and inspire other high performing men that are looking to love themselves in order to love their family, their business, and their world?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a philosophy that I have uncovered through experience, right? There's only one thing in life we simply can't get more of, and money cannot purchase, and that's time. Time is the one thing. Money can buy a lot. Certainly not happiness, but it can buy a lot. Time is the one thing money cannot buy. And so knowing that time is the most valuable asset, how I construct my day is in such a way that I know if I don't feel well, I do not show up as the best father, best husband. And that's not to say that I'm the best at all the time, but I know that it's a massive priority for me to be there for my family. It's like my family. I would burn anything to the ground if I was, if my family was in jeopardy. So I know they are at the top of my totem pole, and in order for me to show up for them, I just need to be one ring above them, because if I'm not well, I'm not going to show up 100. And so I have figured out this plan, this system that, man, like, what does it take for Mike Chernow to be well? What does it mean for me to be at least give me the opportunity to show up 100? And that means that I need time. I need time with myself. And
If we
in
were to
that
give a little
time,
snapshot into the time that you carve out for yourself, for like somebody in an elevator ride with you, and they were to turn to you and be like, "Hey, man, like I feel a special energy from you. Like, how do you create that? What does your morning routine exactly look like, so I can try to emulate
yeah,
that in
so
my
it
life?"
fluctuates a little bit. There are times and seasons, and specifically this is the season where it's going to start to come back, where I do a long string of things, because the cold weather, my body does not love the cold. But as the weather warms up, I will start to spend a little bit more time in the morning doing some things. But realistically, for the last 6 months, my morning routine is essentially the non-negotiables for me. So I wake up at 5:15 every single morning. I smile. I do a quick gratitude list in my head. I tell myself today is going to be a great day. And I didn't actually know that BJ Fogg, like the guy who is the foremost expert on habits, that is actually the number one habit that he recommends. I didn't know that. And I know that's so
Oh,
crazy to
interesting.
say because I'm a habit guy, but like he recommends to all the people that he's come in contact with that want to get started on this sort of like tiny habit thing, is just to tell yourself every single morning that today is going to be a great day. But I've been doing that for a long time. So I wake up in the morning and I smile from ear to ear. I make a mental gratitude list, and I bounce out of bed and I tell myself today is going to be a great day. I sneak out of my bedroom and I make my way downstairs to the kitchen, where I pour myself like a 30-ounce glass of water. I put some supplements in that water, and I put a little electrolytes in there, and I drink that pretty fast, because hydration is essential for happiness and for clarity. And when you're sleeping, if you're in bed 8 hours, that's 8 hours without any fluid in your body. Whether you think so or not, you are actually dehydrated when you wake up every morning. It's just, you wouldn't go 8 hours. You wouldn't go from 12 o'clock to 8 o'clock during the day without drinking something. And so when you sleep or when you're in bed for those 8 hours, you actually are dehydrated. So having hydration first thing in the morning is essential for me. So I drink that really fast. And then I go into the bathroom and I brush my teeth. I floss my teeth. I scrape my tongue, and I put this oral stuff in this mouthwash in my mouth while I'm swishing around. I have a skincare routine that I love to do. I wash my face. I moisturize my face. It is something that I have learned to love. It's a form of self-care for me. It feels good. It makes me feel like I'm doing something good for myself. It's obviously helping me keep my skin fresh and clean. But I go through this little skincare routine protocol. I take a piss, which most people do, and then immediately I drop down on the floor and I have a prayer practice. I've been praying for 20 years, and prayer is a big part of my life. And so I pray. I pray for a lot of people. That's the majority of my prayer is saying people's names and envisioning them in my head and wishing them all the best, for their day. And that goes for people that I love. That goes for people that I'm struggling with. Once someone's made it to that list, they stay on that list. They're on that list forever. There are a bunch of people that have passed away that are still on that list that I pray for, as angels, sort of to look out for me and the other people I'm praying for. And then right after I pray, I go and I do as many push-ups as I can. It typically shakes out to about 60 push-ups. And then I go into a stretching practice, and I stretch for about 5 minutes, and it's typically just down dog, up dog for 5 rounds. And then I do cat cow for 5 rounds. And then I stretch out my calves a little bit. And in most cases, over the last 6 months, that's been my morning routine. I take that with me everywhere I go. Now, because I have all the toys at home, right? A few days a week will, after I stretch, I will turn on my red light panel and I will sit in front of the red light. And I have been most recently using an app called Open. And Open is a meditation breathwork app. So they kind of incorporate both breath and meditation, which I really like. And so I will do this Open app, and it runs anywhere from 10 to like 17 minutes is the longest one I've done. But it's just a nice way to ground myself in front of the red light. And I'll sit in front of that red light naked. And then I throw on a pair of shorts and I head over to the sauna, my infrared sauna, and I'll sit in the sauna for about 20 to 30 minutes and I read while I'm in there. Got a bunch of good sweaty books. And after I'm done with that, I walk right across the garage and I hop into my cold plunge and I'll sit in there anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how the body is feeling. Look, the cold plunge I've been doing for probably about 6 years now. I only do it a couple of days a week now. I used to do it every day. I don't do it every day anymore. There's no feeling like walking out of a cold plunge. You cannot replicate that feeling. It's a very unique feeling. And it really does wake up all your senses. It wakes you up mentally, physically, spiritually. I highly suggest it. But I don't think it's necessary to do every day. And so I do the cold plunge and I get out of the cold plunge. And this is the season where the cold plunge is really going to get back into my life. But in my garage, I have skylights, and typically, by the time I'm getting out of the cold plunge, the sun is coming up, and I stand in front of the skylight, and I kind of just open my arms, and I just like feel I'm like, I'm kind of I'm on cloud nine at that point. My endorphins are through the roof, my cortisol is at its peak, and I'm ready to just like smash the day. As I'm walking out of the garage, I've got a mirror. Most of the time, I'll just stop in front of the mirror. I'll look at myself in the mirror, make eye contact, and I'll just say, Mikey, you're a good dude. Today's going to be a great day, man. Go get it. And then I go into the house and I hang out, with my wife and kids because it's about 6:30 in the morning at that point. So that's kind of like my full morning routine that I when I'm doing that on a regular basis, I'm really in fifth, sixth gear. I know that that's a very privileged morning routine. So, I don't like anybody listening, it's not for everyone. But because I have these things at my house, I'm able to do that. And, when I do that, if I'm doing that 5 days a week, and there's seasons for sure when I'm doing it 7 days a week, my gosh, like I'm a force to be reckoned with. There's no doubt about it.
The Trident family taught me something really important this last year, that we are all a bundle of stories, both good, bad, and everything in between. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. I start my day with the Sweet Cream Cold Brew as I am prepping my mind and body for fitness, service, coaching, and podcasting. With various locations in San Diego, they offer over 14 nitro cold brews and a variety of specialty drinks. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from the Keto Bakery. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code ALLSMITH to take your coffee experience to the next level. If you were to just incorporate the hydration, the breath work, and the up dog, down dog, where you're kind of getting some spinal articulation paired with a little bit of cat cow, that's a beautiful integration that most people know, but knowing is not enough. We must take action. And when you do that consistently, your spine's going to feel better. You're going to get a lot more movement. You're going to be hydrated, which is also going to enhance joint lubrication and all the viscosity associated with your blood and moving things. Like there's a lot of benefits from even if you were to just take a couple nuggets from the extensive morning routine.
Totally. I mean, one other thing that I have loved doing also is, I have two dogs. And so I take the dogs out at about 7:30 in the morning before the kids have to go to school. And I take the dogs out on my property and we go for a 10, 15-minute walk. And I really have been appreciating getting that early morning sun in my eyes. You know, Obviously lots of the greats talk about that sun in the morning. Unfortunately, because I live in the Northeast and it's cold AF, 4 or 5 months out of the year, the only sun that I'm getting is like in my hood as it like hits me in the eyes. But in the summertime, spring, summer, I go out. I try to get as much sun as possible. I mean, I just got back from Mexico. I took in so much sun. My body felt so, just the sun is so important. It's just like for health, it's just, my gosh, like the sun, our body needs the sun. We were meant to be outside way more than we are in this day and age. Like being out is just, yesterday was the first nice day in upstate New York. It was the first nice day. It was 60 degrees. The sun was blazing just like it is today. And man, like at 4 o'clock, I was like sitting at my desk and I'm saying to myself, geez, man, I'm like, I'm lucky because I have an office that I love. And, I roll my feet out. I got Normatec boots. I mean, I use this time wisely, even when I'm working. But man, like I was saying to myself, I was like, I typically work till 5:30, 5:45 every day. And that's like sort of my boundary that I've made with myself, where like I just don't work after 5:30. I just don't do it anymore. Period. I just do not. And that's been very healthy for me because I was not good at that for a long time. Mm-hmm. But yesterday I was like, it's 4 o'clock. I'm supposed to work till 5:30. I'm an entrepreneur. I make my own schedule. I'm closing the computer. I'm getting outside and I'm going to go for a 3-mile ruck. Period. Done. It's just what's happening. You want to get a hold of me, you got to call me. And I was so proud of myself that I did that. I'm going to do that again today. Because, there's a lot of things we cannot control in life. Most things we cannot control. Business is not going good and you've got your health, you'll be all right. You'll bounce back. You'll find a way to get back into it. You got your health. You're fine. I mean, it doesn't matter what happens. You got your health. You're okay. Business is not going well and you don't have your health. Good luck. You're in a pickle, a real pickle. Business isn't going well. Health isn't going well because you haven't prioritized it. Now you're really in a jam. I don't want to be in a jam. I put my health first. And, it makes me a better human being, man. It just makes me a better human,
I really appreciate you sharing that. I think there's some good value that people can add to their back pocket there. I want to touch on what was brought to my attention by a local entrepreneur here in San Diego named Daniel Hack. He taught me about the 5 F's: faith, family, fitness, finances, and fun. And I thought those were like a pretty cool combination of categories to play with. But something that I've crossed paths with recently is the word faith. And we talked about prayer. We talked about angels. But that word is sometimes like, it's kind of like the word CrossFit. Like some people like light up to it and they're like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing. And other people kind of cringe like, oh, I don't know that I like that. It's associated with X, Y, and Z based on their past or hypocrisy or an unsafe relationship with tithing. What comes to mind as we kind of peel back the layers on the word faith?
So I'm a man of faith. I don't belong to a secular group. I've chosen a path of God as nature, the universe, energy. I pray every morning to that. But really what it all boils down to is, for me anyway, is faith shows up in endurance. Faith shows up in a commitment to not giving up no matter what. And that is kind of how I have distilled faith in my life. because most people, when the going gets tough and it gets really hard, which life does, no matter how you slice it, life is going to be hard. But especially if you're gunning for greatness, you're gunning to be great at something, life is going to get really hard because you're not the only one gunning for greatness, you know. Most people, when it gets really hard, quit, throw in the towel, and just don't believe they have what it takes to continue to fight. For me, faith has given me, the fight, the fear is the enemy, and the faith is the strength to power through whatever the enemy throws my way. Endurance is a real component to my faith, but my belief in faith. Endurance and patience is also a big part of faith for me. I am not a subscriber to anything happening quickly. Nothing happens quickly.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good way to describe it. And as I hear you describe it, it feels so real and authentic. And the other thing that's kind of coming to mind is that self-respect and self-esteem largely come from having faith in your own word, doing what you say you're going to do. And something about that is it's really cliche, easy to say, very difficult to execute. And I think starting with a low-hanging fruit, creating that upward momentum, accumulating wins, provides the opportunity to then be consistent. And I've heard it said time and time again, like, yeah, consistency, it's the answer to the world's problems. And people are like, yeah, whatever. But it's like being consistent may not actually lead to your goals, but I can guarantee that not being consistent will absolutely lead you down a dark path. But going back to kind of what we were talking about, man, like holding yourself to your word and realizing, like you said, the patience, the power of delayed gratification, which isn't easy in a modern day age of just social media likes and just like getting the thing very quickly.
I believe that doing what you say you're going to do is the key to self-love, because you know, I call it the 3 C's: commitment, confidence, courage. And you know, I have Walker tattooed on my hand right here, clear, so I could see it, because there's so many talkers in this world. You know, people talk about things that they want to do all the time. I don't talk about things that I'm on the fence about doing, or that I'm about to do, or that, you know, I've been wanting to do for a long time. I'm only going to say what I'm actually going to do. And I've got like a contract with myself that if there's something that I'm contemplating, there's something I'm kicking the tires on, you can write about it, you can think about it. But until you're ready to fully execute and take it to the finish line, don't say it. Just don't say it. And then once you say it, don't go tell everybody you know. Doing what you say you're going to do is a way to build real respect and confidence for your life, for yourself. And the first step in that is commitment. So you say you're going to do it, you've got to commit. And commitment is a daily reprieve. It's something that you got to do every single day. Once you commit to the thing you say you're going to do, and you're locked in and you've committed to it and you're doing it and you're seeing yourself getting a little bit better every day, every week, every month, that just builds absolute confidence. It builds absolute confidence. And there's nothing more powerful than self-confidence, because a person with self-confidence is capable of anything. I believe that. And once you have enough self-confidence, you know, courage becomes just part of your story. And courage to me is what, people write history books about, right? Like courage is everything. And, every night that I put my sons down, I've got two boys. I've got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, Finn and Dakota, the loves of my life. And my wife and I go back and forth putting the boys down. And we do different things when we put the kids down. But when I put the kids down, we have a routine. Shocking. But at the end of that routine, I say to the kids, hey boys, you can do anything you want to do when you grow up, and your dad's going to support you as long as you do it for yourself and nobody else. And then I say, and what's it going to take? And they say courage. And then I say, what is courage? And they say courage is being afraid and doing it anyway, as long as it's for the good. And I've wanted to.
Fucking beautiful. I love that so much.
Yeah, I haven't been given a blueprint for how to parent or how to be a good father. But I knew that there were some values that I wanted to instill in my sons in a very different way than my father instilled value in me. Now, my father definitely instilled values in me, and I'm grateful for him for that. He did it in a very aggressive way, and I wanted to have a similar outcome, and who knows if it's going to work. But I knew that I wanted to instill values in my sons. And so we have something called the 13 things, and then we finish off with this courage thing. And, I think doing what you say you're going to do is imperative. Who cares about other people? It's imperative for self-love, self-respect, trusting yourself, believing in yourself. If you lie to yourself constantly by saying you're going to do things and not do them, you ultimately end up believing that you are a liar.
I love that you said that, because if you think about that, if we have friends that, constantly flake on us, or, say they're going to be somewhere and then aren't there, they don't communicate, they don't respond to, texts or phone calls, you give them grace in the beginning, but then eventually you're just kind of like, no, you're showing me your true colors. Like,
Totally.
now I'm going to start to back up and distance myself. But we're so judgmental when we see it in others, but we're not when we do it to ourselves. And it unlocks tremendous eyebrow raising for me, because commitment is my word for 2025. What I've thought a lot about is that the path out of despair is by keeping commitments to oneself. And when you do that, you develop a stack of evidence that then leads to confidence. And with confidence, it unlocks belief. It unlocks our ability to continually put one foot in front of the other in pursuit of the light at the end of the tunnel that maybe we couldn't see before, but because we maintained those commitments to oneself, we inched closer and closer to where maybe our psychological dreams became a vision and later a reality. And intermixed or spiced in, or the salt and pepper of all of that, is courage. And it's something that's so interesting to me, because we observe it in others, but we don't observe it all the time in ourselves. So that's something that kind of taps into your psyche a little bit.
100%, man. I mean, I look, courage is not being fearless. Courage is understanding that fear is part of the equation and doing it anyway. And that is as long as it's for the good, right? So for me, especially as an entrepreneur, without courage, I'm in big trouble, because courage gives me an opportunity to try things that are scary as hell, that could go one of two ways. And I just know that I've been sort of, people used to ask me, I remember early on in my days of entrepreneurship, are you scared to open up a second restaurant, to open up a third restaurant, to open up a fourth? Are you scared? And I used to say, actually, like, I wouldn't say that I'm scared. I'm being courageous. I know that it is scary, but I just have the confidence in myself, because I've done it over and over again, to understand that I'm going to take this risk. And if I fail, I will get back up. And that is like, when that becomes the path forward, a courageous path forward, I'm just here to say, like, there's no glass ceiling. You are capable of of anything you put your mind to. You know, it's almost like being a kamikaze pilot. You're like, hey, I'm going to do this. And, you know, there's a good chance that I don't make it through, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it and hope for the best. And, you know, well, maybe the kamikaze pilot wasn't the greatest analogy there, because you don't make it through that.
Yeah, but it's an all-in commitment, right? It's not straddling the line.
It's
It's
just
knowing that
going
there is
for it.
no going
It's
back,
going
and
for it.
it's turning the boats, right? And like what's coming to mind there is proof, right? Like knowing that on the other side, it's for the good, like you've said to your kids. And I think also going back to the James Clear quote, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems, which is typically in alignment with our habits. When you look at the habits that you beautifully articulated and laid out as far as a morning routine, people don't do extraordinary things by not keeping those commitments. They do it by starting small, like not hitting the snooze button at 5:15 or not using their phone before 9. Like little agreements that we've made with ourselves, and not always creating grace for that, being like, no, this is a non-negotiable. This is something that I do because I'm not looking for the accolades or the validation. It's because it's who I am. When I say I'm going to do something, I execute it. When you do that over and over again, you realize that it's this handshake agreement with yourself. It's trust. And trust isn't broken by just not doing what you say you're going to do. It's broken when you don't own up to it, when you don't take responsibility, when you don't point it out and you choose to sweep it underneath the rug. But as a byproduct of taking responsibility, practicing the art of commitment time and time again, it unlocks reservoirs of potential in the form of confidence that I really do think is the key to pulling out the magic that's inside of the souls and the hearts of so many individuals out there.
You know, when I hear you say that, like, I just dropped a podcast on Monday. I've been doing these like shorter form podcasts every Monday, just sort of
Nice.
random, you know, trains of thought. And I've been asked by people, like, why do you feel the need to push so hard? You know, like why? And my response is, because the truth of the matter is that I want to see what I'm made of. I want to see what I'm made of. I want to understand what I'm made of. And some people will roll their eyes at that. Oh, you do it because you want to see what you're made of. And my answer is absolutely. You know, this thing we call life is a game. It's a game. At the end of the day, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, but realistically, it is a game. And, you know, when you go to, you know, sit at the Monopoly board and you're going to go play Monopoly with friends, you don't walk into that game saying, I'm just going to kind of play. You're like, I want to win. I want to win the game. I want to buy all the properties. I want to get all the hotels. I want to have all the money, and I want to take a risk and buy that thing, even though I've got a little bit of money in my bank. I'm going to buy that thing because I know every time somebody crosses it, it's just going to start giving me cash. Like, you play the game because you want to win the game. Life is the same way. You shouldn't think about life as sitting down to kind of play. You want to play. You want to play the game. And unless you die, you have a shot to get back at the table and buy back in. It's a game. And I've only started to really believe that or think like that in the last year or two. There's going to be stress. There's going to be anxiety. You know, it's just part of like the human condition. But
Yeah.
the only thing that drives people, the number one stressor that drives people in life is money. It's the number one. It just is. Globally, it's the number one thing. Am I going to be able to get what I want? And typically in this day and age, the way you get things that you think you want is from money. But what I've learned is that money is not going to make you a happier person. Money is going to only enhance the current person you are. So if you're a happy person, good chance money will make you a happier person. But if you're an unhappy person because all you think about is money, chances are money is going to make you more of an unhappy person because you're never going to be fucking satisfied. So I have just started to say, hey, well, money is not the goal, right? Because I know a lot of people with a lot of money and they're pretty damn unhappy. Not everyone, but a lot of them. They're just like, on to the next million, on to the next million, on to the next 10. And so if money's not the thing, okay, now I can play the game. Now if it's like, if it's all about what am I made of? Like, what am I made of, man? Like, what am I made of? If every day is a challenge to see what am I made of, man, now I've got like a real purpose. And that doesn't have to be in business. That could be in, am I gonna eat the food that I say I was gonna eat today? Am I going to train the way I said I was gonna train today? And am I going to be kind to the people and show up in a way that I'm proud of today? It doesn't have to be about the money. Anxiety levels drop. And I love the idea that I've kind of like put on my Post-it sticker for the day. It's not about the money, Mike. It's about what are you made of, and show up that way. Show up that way. I don't care if people roll their eyes because you do 17 things before 6:30 in the morning and they think you're ridiculous. Let them think you're ridiculous. You're showing up and you're playing the game, and you're giving it everything you've got because you want to see what you're made of, and that's okay. They don't have to feel that way. But I promise you,
Totally.
if they did feel
Like
that way,
you mentioned, like you have adaptability and flex. It's not like I'm gonna have a bad day if I can't check the box on all these things. They're just things that you've proven to yourself work. And then what comes to mind there is controlling actions is easier than controlling thoughts. And if you can control those actions, you've carved out space for those actions. You're in a better state when you approach the next chapter of your day. I don't see a problem with that. I also don't see a problem if somebody just wants to wake up and go straight to work and they don't have a morning routine. That's cool too. If it works for them, fine. I mean, entrepreneurship is all about find what works and do more of it. And I like that you hold yourself to a standard and you have that standard. You don't give a fuck what anybody else thinks, which I think is really powerful and honestly is the key to kind of unlocking and tapping into who you're supposed to be. You can't constantly grant permission slips to the external world to validate or devaluate, your choices. You have to do what you think is best for you and your tribe. Otherwise, you're constantly going to be, like you said previously, working for somebody else.
One thing that I want to talk about that pertains to that is balance, because and I've been sharing more about balance because I really do believe that at this point in my life I have a real balance. I just do. I have a balance. And for years you hear, oh, there's no such thing as work-life balance if you're really trying to be, in the top 1%, no such thing as work-life balance. And in my mind, it's like I call it BS. It might take longer, which I'm comfortable with. I've got a long road ahead. Like, I'm totally comfortable and have the patience and the endurance for it to take longer. I feel like I'm pretty young. Like, I've got a long road ahead. But balance between myself, my fitness, my nutrition, my routines, my family, and my business. That's my life. That is my life, right? And I live for vacationing with my family. I love going on vacation with my family. I had a guy on my podcast years ago, this guy, Gino Wickman. He created the EOS system, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. You should check it out. But he told me on my podcast that he takes off 150 days a year. Super successful entrepreneur. Super successful. Wow. Like, this guy has built incredible empires. He's like, oh, I take off 150 days a year. And I was like, man, that's a lot of days, But really, when you break it down, he takes off every weekend. So that's 104 days right there. Boom. Just out the gate. 52 times 2 is 104. So he takes off every single weekend. He takes off the month of August. So that's 134 days. And then he takes at least 2 10-day vacations a year. And I was like, wow, that's my dream. That's what I want to do. I want 150 days off a year. And I want anybody who works with me to have the same goal, 150 days off a year. So the way I've started working towards that goal, and I'm pretty damn close, man. I mean, I am. And people will say, oh, you don't have a 9-to-5 job. And I'm like, you're right. I don't. And if you don't want a 9-to-5 job, stop doing 9-to-5. Like, I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I don't have a 9-to-5 job. I create my own destiny. I'm an entrepreneur. I've taken that risk. I wear that on my back. I mean, I do. But, don't give me shit because you do have a 9-to-5. It's not a fair thing to challenge me on.
It's the danger of the 3 words, must be nice. It's like, you don't know what it took to get here. You don't know the risk tolerance, the uncertainty, the crazy volatility that comes with the peaks and valleys of entrepreneurship. And so it's like somebody that wants to throw that out there, like, that's cool. You just subscribe to the land of certainty where you receive a check biweekly and you just don't have the risk tolerance yet.
Yeah.
And that's
by
okay.
the way,
choice.
That is totally cool. I'm like all for you working the 9-to-5, the safety, the security, the consistency in that. Like I have no judgment towards 9-to-5ers, but don't break my balls because I've chosen not to live that life. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So, I kind of have had to start with these boundaries, right? For years, as I was coming up, I worked around the clock. I mean, I just did. I thought that success as an entrepreneur was quantified by how many hours I would work a week. And so I was working, man, the first 5-6 years. I mean, dude, it was brutal. I mean, I almost lost my marriage. I was working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was brutal. And I had to evolve. I had to mature as an entrepreneur. So now my day starts at around 9 a.m., sometimes 8:30, and I work until 5:30. And most days I fit a workout in there as well. It's in my calendar as like a business meeting. And so I work somewhere between 6 and 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And I have stuck to that. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that if I can't get it done in those hours, I'm either not surrounded by the right people or I've got to check my priority list. Because if this thing, I'm holding up my cell phone, is distracting me as I'm working those 6 to 8 hours, that is me not doing what I say I'm going to do, which means from 8:30 to 5:30, I'm focused on getting shit done. And man, the freedom of shutting my computer at 5:30 in the afternoon or in the evening and knowing that I'm done for the day, doesn't matter what the fuck is going on. Doesn't matter if I've got 100 emails that I've got to get to. Like, it's all good because tomorrow is another day and I need balance in my life. I need the balance. It's going to take me longer to get to the potential goal of where I see myself in the future. And that's just fine with me. And anybody who doesn't like that works with me, okay, find another job. Like, I'm not, like if you're going to judge me because I'm the CEO of the company and I only work from 8:30 to 5:30, if that's not okay for you because you have chosen to work from 8:30 to 10:30 at your role of the company, man, like I'm stoked for you, but don't judge me because I have chosen balance. So balance is a choice. It is a choice, especially if you're an entrepreneur. It is a choice. And if you don't have the dignity to be able to set up a system that balance could be real in your life, that is something that you need to look at. Balance is very real in my life. I have dinner with my family every single night at 6 o'clock, no matter what, unless I'm traveling. Every night, 7 days a week, I am at the dinner table with my family. The phone is shut off. The computer is closed. And that is pure family time. And I try my best to be as present and locked in as I can.
Free is the way to be. Life beats us up a bit and causes some bumps and bruises, but that doesn't mean we have to stay on the sidelines. This is why we've partnered with Kinyan Labs. Get back to doing what you love with this incredible portable device designed to get you back in the game. Kinyan is on a mission to move people from pain to possible with their top-rated red light therapy and laser solution, which tackles inflammation along with muscle and joint pain quickly and effectively. What I love is that it's portable and rechargeable, making it easy to actually incorporate into my everyday life consistently. It's small and lightweight, so you can throw it in your gym bag or work bag, or even an overnighter. Kinyan's lasers and LED combo make this cutting-edge device extremely versatile for use with general aches and pains, as well as chronic back pain, arthritis, post-surgery recovery, endometriosis, and more. This has been an amazing tool keeping my elbows and knees pain-free for pressing, pulling, and squatting in the gym. Great tools like the Move Plus give me the freedom and flexibility to continue living life on my terms without limitations. There are a lot of reasons why over 15,000 people are using this device and rating it 4.7 stars and above. Head on over to kinyan.io and use code ALLSMITH at checkout to begin your pain-free journey. I love the firmness of this boundary, man, because there's always fires to put out. It's easy to be, the one with the fire extinguisher when you're the founder and the CEO of a company. You're going to obviously care more than other people are going to care about the growth and development of the brand, the company, the products, and all the things. But what's so awesome for me to hear is just the courage to be disliked, the courage to realize that workouts are non-negotiable. I do the same thing within my window of 9 to about 8. And I do think there is, something to be said about single income, no kids. And when you first get into entrepreneurship of like being in the grind and hustle and urgency culture, because you realize what not to do. And you realize like how expensive that is, not just monetarily, but on your energy, your ethos, your heart, your soul, and your mind, more importantly. And at the end of your life, Michael, you're not always going to remember the nights you stayed up later and answered those emails. You're going to remember the adventures with your kids. You're going to remember walking the dogs, the depth of the memories and the moments that you crafted and curated with your wife and your close friends and loved ones. And that's why we work. And somewhere along the human experience, we started living to work rather than working to live. I'm all for, having the paintbrush and being the entrepreneurial Picasso to create something for you and for the world that's going to live on long after we're gone. Cool. But some of those micro moments with your kids, where they say 18 years, those first few years, you're like tired of all the shit. It's like your shit, your dog shit, and your kid shit. And it's like eventually that time of changing diapers is going to have a last time. And then it's going to be like, hey, you're navigating, taking them to sports and, always having to kind of be their pseudo Uber driver for a while until they get that license. And then it's like they kind of want nothing to do with you through those teenage years and trying to figure things out. And then before you know it, they're off into the real world. And if you actually look at a calendar after a child moves on to college, there's actually a finite numerical number of times that you get to spend time with these people. And so I think when you look back to what you said, the highest form of currency being time and attention, well, yeah, the work's always going to be there. It's never ending. You can always do more. The workouts are always there. There's more weight to put on the bar. There's more reps to be had. There's more burpees. There's more work. But the time with those that you love and care about is finite because life happens and it pulls us in so many different directions.
I got to go back to when I put my sons down at night. So my younger son, Dakota, is a monster. He is he's abnormally large in terms of just his body. He's a humongous kid. I'm not a big guy. My wife is Danish. Her whole family are behemoths. They're just big, 6'4" men, right? So Dakota got that gene. He is a big kid, and he came out a big kid, and he falls asleep the second he puts his head down to that pillow. The kid is out, and he's always been that way. My older son, Finn, is just like me. He's lean, he's light, he's small, but he's feisty. He does not fall asleep fast. And typically, by the time I'm done, I always sing Stand By Me to the kids since they're born every night. That's how we finish. And by the time I'm done with that song, Dakota, you can hear him snoring. Finley, I have to chill with for a little bit. And it's a wonderful, beautiful gift from God that I get to do that with my son, because I don't like to disturb Dakota. But with Finn, I hang out with them for a few minutes, and probably about 7 or 8 minutes, I'm using my my So Right, which is like, by the way, if anybody does not have a So Right and they're an athlete, like, you must get your hands on a So Right. It is the best tool ever made in history for recovery. But I use the So Right pretty much every night. And when I'm done with that, I crawl over to Finn, and he's awake, and I hug him like it's the last thing I'm going to do. But I put my head down on his chest, and my face is real close to his face. I put my head down on his chest, and I listen to his heartbeat, and I listen to him breathe. And in my head, I'm like, man, I would rather be nowhere else in the world on the planet. I'm with my son. I don't know how many times I'm going to be able to get to do this. I don't know when's going to be the last one he's going to let me get this close to him and hug him and listen to his heartbeat and listen to him breathe. And, one time, he finally said, Dad, why do you do that? And I said, son, I do this because I'm so lucky to be able to listen to you and watch you live. And, no one ever did that to me. Having that relationship with my kids and doing these little things that might seem small make a massive impact. And honestly, I got to bring it back to just the habits. These little habits that you can do, drinking the water, having a skincare routine, smiling in the morning, these little tiny things that take, anywhere from 1 to 4 minutes to pull off, doing some push-ups in the morning, getting a little stretch in, whatever. These little habits compiled over time make massive waves. It's not the big habits. It's not the big wins. The big wins require a lot of other people. It's the little wins consistently performed that make massive waves. And I just think if there's one thing anybody gets from this podcast, is that this thing we call life is a game. You get to show up and play how you want to play most of the time. It's not a rush. It's not a sprint. It's a damn marathon, a long journey. You don't have to be the first one to the finish line. You just don't. And give yourself grace. It's going to take time. And along the way, setting yourself up for success with these little habits will absolutely make a massive difference in your day-to-day happiness. Don't feel the pressure of the race, because it is a long, long journey. And if you want balance, like I do, I'm prepared for it to take a long time, because balance to me is success in life. It's not about all the things. It's the balance of the things that mean the most. And you can have it all. You really can. You can have it all. You just got to be comfortable with it taking a long time. And,
Delayed gratification, my friend. And Bob Marley said it best. He was asked, are you rich? And he goes, rich. Do you mean like lots of money or things? He goes, no. But I have lots of meaningful relationships. And I thought that was very beautiful. To press on that button a little bit and give a little bit of pushback, you've created a lifestyle where you've had monetary success. You've created restaurants, you've exited them, you've created and fostered relationships, all because of the work you were willing to put in, the time, energy, and emotion to foster deep, meaningful relationships and be interested. So many people are in pursuit of that, and they don't have a product. They've never created something like Creatures of Habit, which, like you said and like you alluded to, and when you look at the finances, it's like you didn't just start and all of a sudden the product boomed. It took time. It took refinement. It took tinkering in the lab and screwing it up over the course of time. So it's like maybe people that are at the onset of this journey, that are in pursuit of balance, that are in pursuit of trying to craft out more time and energy for the things that are more meaningful for them. What advice would you give them? Would you advise them to start now and just integrate the balance, the self-love and self-care now? Or do you think that there is like an integration and almost like a pseudo hazing period to entrepreneurship where you just kind of have to put your head down through a wall for a little bit and feel the lonely chapter as you're in transition of this new type of life?
Look, not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, right? There's a lot of people that are very comfortable in their jobs. And I am totally on board for that. There are another class of people that are not happy in their 9 to 5 job and want to be an entrepreneur. And then, of course, there's entrepreneurs. All I will say is if you are not happy in your job and you haven't been in a long time and you kind of stay up at night thinking about that thing that you want to do, it would be a shame to not go for it and give it a go. It would be a shame because the last thing you want is to be in your 80s and have stuck with the 9 to 5 and you got the 401k and you retired and you just never took the swing. And you always question, man, I wonder if that would have worked. Don't be that person. That's all I'll say. Don't be that person. Now, when it comes to a hazing period, I can't say that I would be where I am today had I not worked those crazy hours in the beginning. I don't know. I just don't, because that is my story. I worked around the clock and there was no balance, zero balance. And I was not happy. That's the facts. Even though business was successful, I was not happy. And maybe that is what it takes. Although if you're comfortable with endurance and having patience, I could almost guarantee that you can create something that you believe in, not put crazy, unrealistic goals in front of you to hit, and just say, I am going to organically build and grow this thing. I have the ability to do it financially, or I could pay myself just the right amount to be able to make ends meet and just build it over time. I do think you can reach a similar goal of success, and it's just going to take longer. It's just going to take longer. And I think I would rather, now knowing what I know, I would rather have something take longer and build slower than race to the finish, hate every step of the run. And honestly, this is the analogy that I kind of think about when I think about like that grind entrepreneurship life. You're at the base camp of Mount Everest, and you're looking up at this massive mountain, big, huge, scary, just life altering mountain, could kill you. You're looking up at this thing and you just know it's just going to suck, man. It's just going to suck. And there's going to be moments of gratitude and moments of feeling amazing on that journey, but it's really going to be a hard climb. And so you spend years preparing for it, and then you get there and you start to climb. And man, if God's on your side and the weather the weather shakes out well, you get to summit and you get to the top of the thing and you look around, you give your buddy a high five and you're there for a minute and then you walk back down. You know what I mean? It's like the goal, the summit is not it. It's the journey that gets you there is really where all of the gems are going to drop. And so nobody runs up Mount Everest. It's impossible. You can't do it. You just can't. It takes time. It's a grind. It's grueling, and that's what you sign up for as being an entrepreneur. But don't run through the journey. Don't think that there's a finish line, that there's a time. It's not CrossFit for time. It's not. It's like just make sure you're if you are methodical about it, if you're able to give yourself the grace of being comfortable with patience, you will get there. Take the safe, stepping into entrepreneurship, it's not the safe route, right? It's a risky route, but you can you can be thoughtful about the steps you take up that mountain. You can. And, racing through it to try to be the best as fast as possible. I just don't see the freedom in that,
So many great nuggets you've dropped today, man. And I loved what you talked about as far as like the pain of suffering is way better than the pain of regret. You don't want to be the guy at 80 years old sitting on a park bench wondering what if, because you didn't, try to go after that itch that was living rent free in the back of your mind. You just kept pushing it and burying it over the course of time. You're a special one, man. I'm such a fanboy over here, and I think what you're doing with Creatures of Habit is so cool. And we didn't talk about it too much today, but I know sobriety is a huge part of your story. I think you're coming up on 20 years sober, so a huge shout out to you. And I wanted to hold some space real quick. If you wanted to give any advice to maybe some other people that are, navigating addiction or in pursuit of sobriety, because I know it's something that holds very, very true in your heart.
Yeah, I guess the only piece of advice that I would be comfortable giving, because I know it works, is to ask for help. I know that there's nothing I can say or nothing you can say or nothing anybody can say to make somebody want to or stay sober. It's an inside job, but I'm here to say that I was deeply addicted to drugs and alcohol for 11 years of my life. And I have now been sober for over 20 years. And I've lived a life that I would have never imagined possible. Could nowhere close when I was out there using and drinking. I thought I was going to be dead at 25. So the advice is, if you're on the fence, you think you've got a problem or you got a problem and you want to stop, but you don't believe it's possible for you, I'm here to tell you it's very possible. There is not a bone in my body, a cell in my body that doesn't think it's possible, as I know it's possible. The first step is asking for help, because most addicts don't want to ask for help or believe that help is available. I'm here to tell you, you should ask for help. It is absolutely available. And coming out on the other side of addiction is 1000% possible. And once you do, is it going to be easy? Hell no. Hell no. However, you as an addict have a superpower that most people don't have. And that superpower is loyalty and conviction and commitment. You are committed to the drugs and the alcohol. You are loyal to the drugs and the alcohol. You will do most things to make sure that you get right with drugs and alcohol. When you come out on the other side, you still have that superpower, commitment, loyalty, the ability for discipline. Strip away the drugs and the alcohol, channeled in the right direction, you're unstoppable as a person, as a human. I promise you that. That is my story. I am as committed to my life in a positive way as I was committed to my life in a negative way when I was deep in the throes of addiction. I would have done a lot of things that I would never even think about doing today when I was out there using. And so as soon as those drugs and the alcohol came and I was able to latch on to fitness and nutrition and build my life through that world, there was no stopping me. I could do anything I wanted to do as long as I didn't drink or use.
You're such a special one. I think it's a good spot for us to put a cap on it.
Thank you, brother.
This was really fun. For those of you guys listening, whether you're here for wisdom on entrepreneurship, leadership, wellness, or just looking for that extra spark of motivation, you're in the right place. We've got a very cool winning playbook that was shared with us today by the great Michael Chernow, founder and CEO of Kreatures of Habit. Mike, this was dope, man. You're definitely a walker, not just a talker, and you really did paint a picture and use some great analogies and metaphors, especially that Mount Everest one that I really appreciated. I think will resonate with a lot of people. So thank you for that.
Yeah, man. And lastly, for the community, if people want to, check out Creatures of Habit, we created a code for the community just to give it a try. ALLSMITH 20. You can pop over to the Creatures of Habit website, just Creatures with a K, and see what's in there. We've got some really cool products that I'm very proud of, and we'd love you to join the community. Building a really cool community at Creatures of Habit.
We appreciate you so much, man. Super special project that you're working on over there, and we're thankful to kind of be a part of that. And for those of you listening, please rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, and as always, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. Until next time. Thanks, Mike.